Today, in Utterance, we will be exploring a conversation on marriage, career, family, support, caregiving roles, and responsibilities with Dr. Ishani Basu, who is an assistant professor in English at a reputed college in West Bengal. She is a bohemian at heart and collector of books and memories. Please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. Ishani is an urban, independent, young millennial woman and someone who have no plan of tying the knot anytime soon, despite the prying eyes of the society. Ishani, welcome to Utterance.
Thank you, Lumbini.
Tell us about your story and views. Let's begin with your happiness quotient and why, at this point in time, you find staying single as absolutely blissful.
Well, as an introvert, I sort of have a world of my own, and I use my vivid imagination to people my world, so much so that there is often little need of supplementing it with real people at times, which is funny because we see a lot of extroverts going on and on about their lives and their achievements and tidbits of their days and journeys all over social media to the point where some of it seems to be overwhelming to introverts, maybe like me. So it's not that introverts like me do not need friends. I mean, we do need friends. We do appreciate a helping hand. But we take time for ourselves every now and then, and we have grown comfortable in our shell, let's call it that, although extroverts would prefer to call it our comfort zone. So that's that. As a feminist, I do not see myself conforming to the institution of marriage. Now, I wouldn't go into a controversy, but it is my personal viewpoint that I believe in companionship. I believe in being there for someone, falling in love, staying together. All these carry meaning for me. But conforming to an age-old institution that is constricting, mostly for women, I simply cannot relate with at this moment. So that's that. A lot of people have lectured me, probed into my psyche that why am I not getting married? There's a lot of conjecture about it actually, which is funny really. I'll tell you a little anecdote about it. Back when I was in college, long time back, I remember one of our eminent teachers was an unmarried woman. She was possibly in her 30s, And so, you know how students are. We are a gossiping bunch. So, a little concern over her marriageable age and the possibility of her not marrying someone was a very popular topic among our students of first and second year. By the time we were in third year, she finally got hitched. And I remember we were so happy for her that she has at last broken the shackles of singlehood and gotten married. She was a doctor. She was a very good teacher. But what mattered to us most was why she was not getting married. It's funny, really. Now, when I'm in her shoes, I do not see myself doing it anytime soon. And I find it hilarious that how viewpoints change with age, with maturity.
Right. Ishani, let's talk about a few factors that may have psychologically impacted us to take the decisions that we take regarding a few things in life, like the factors. Do you think previous interpersonal relationships that might have been stressful affect us? Or say, with age, we all tend to retreat more into being in self independent mode, and after a long day's work, we just won't want to share a new space, adjusting to a new family that comes along with the institution of marriage, or even follow the new rule books that new people who come along with the wedding would lay in front of us. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I'll deal with each of the issues separately. So let's talk about the first factor, which is uh, the psychological impact of behind our decisions. Why do we do whatever we are doing? Yes, of course, family is one of the most important factor in shaping our consciousness and taking risks, making our own choices. I've been privileged enough to be born in a liberal family, a family of two generations of working women, of educated women who recognized the need to educate their children irrespective of their genders. And I believe most of my family members have a PhD right now. So, or at least most of them have MA degree at the least. So I, I never really had a dearth of opportunities before me, which many women of India or around the world are, I don't know, they're simply not getting. I have been privileged enough, I admit that, to have got all this scope, to have got all these opportunities in pursuing my studies, in pursuing my job, without getting married, without settling for a mediocre relationship. So family is, of course, one of the important factor, but that is not the only factor. I have Of course, a herd of women rebelling against their families and society, standing up for themselves and fighting against early marriage or child marriage, even, and making a mark. I cannot say that for myself because I didn't really have a battle there. I have been lucky enough in that matter. But interpersonal relationships do influence us, and somehow the role models I had growing up, uh, Florence Nightingale and um, Joan of Arc, or even Sister Nivedita, all three of them, they had their own mission, and I believe all of them chose to remain uh, ascetic and single, devoted to their cause. So that could have been one of the reasons that I never really saw myself aspiring to being somebody's wife. It was always uh, some professional goal that I was after. And another thing would be the relationships that any person would have at the age of 35. I mean, we do not live in a void of relationships. We are uh, social animals and we socialize, we have relationships, relationships which do not work out in our favor, or we grow out of each other. I have been uh, in a relationship for a very long time, over a decade. It simply did not work out to anybody's favor, let's just say that. And it gave me a glimpse of something very, very problematic. All the issues that not just social workers, but feminists, philanthropists, social reformers have been working with came up in my past relationship. The demand of dowry, for example. Of course, it was non negotiable, and I walked out of it. But I could never have imagined that this would happen to me.
Correct.
Again, I have had some of the best people in my life who have chosen to remain unmarried and live life in their own terms.
Mm-hmm.
My maternal aunt,
Mm-hmm.
especially,
Yeah.
she has been living with us. She is happily unmarried. She is over 70. She's cheerful, loving, and as happy as she could be.
True. True. Whenever I used to visit, I remember, how she never looked as if she was uh, feeling incomplete in herself or something. She was always so happy and fulfilled in her own demeanor. So that's something to cherish.
Yes, of course. And it is also very interesting that She was in a all girls convent. She was
Okay.
a teacher.
Okay.
She was a maths teacher.
Mhm.
She was in an all girls convent, and it was a Brahmo school,
Acha.
and a lot of women. I mean, the teachers were all women because it was a girls' school. The school still exists, but I think most of the teachers who were there
Mhm.
chose to remain unmarried.
Mhm.
Can you imagine, like, how many years would that be? 40
Exactly.
to 50 years back.
Back. Yeah.
These women took such bold steps to be financially independent and living life on their terms,
Mm.
which I think is really fascinating. So I believe that it's not as simple as we become too self independent for our own good and grow complacent and negligent of interpersonal relationships. I don't think that the dynamics is as simple as that. I believe that if you are already living a fulfilling life, then what is the logic behind messing that up? And let's not forget that when we're talking about the institution of marriage, chauvinists believe that feminists are anti marriage.
Yeah.
That is a popular concept. The thing is that feminists are not anti marriage, feminists are against the concept that marriage only comes with responsibilities which only need to be handled by the woman and the woman alone.
Right.
So the onus of keeping the marriage vows intact
Right.
and keeping a marriage uh, smooth often falls on the woman alone. Let's talk about the signifiers of uh, marriage. Priyanka
Ishani,
Chopra
here,
is,
yeah, just a moment. I wanted to know if you think in India we associate being unmarried with being unhappy as well. So now that you're elaborating, you may club in your elaboration along with these thoughts as well. Like, not only is an unmarried woman considered sad, miserable, lonely, or lost in life, she can never be complete in her own right. She is a disgrace to the family, and most of all, a threat to the institution of marriage. What do you have to say to that? Please go ahead with your elaboration.
the times that I have been told that I'm incomplete because I'm unmarried. If I had a penny for that thought, I'd be rich by now. A lot of people have, let's not name them, a lot of people have expressed their concern from family to colleagues to strangers, even auto wallahs have expressed their interest in why am I not married yet. So that's that. And I think unmarried women, about unmarried women uh, in general, their stigma is not new. So I think in the Middle Ages, it was mostly unmarried women or widows who were burnt in trials as witches. So, for ages, unmarried women have been stigmatized as sad, lost, purposeless, and miserable in general. So, without a husband, she is bringing shame to the family. And if she is happy, then she's a temptress. She's probably luring the single men or the married men to her lair to have an affair, trying to break up a happy marriage. All these ideas are very dominant in not just our society. I believe in every society. I mean, we have grown up watching Bridget Jones' Diary, and we have seen how it's no different in a different country either.
Do you think age is a factor? Age is a factor in this? I mean, like is the age group say between 30 to 40 tricky for women who choose maybe not to marry or marry late? Do you think that generally these kind of comments or stop after 40 because society finally accepts the woman's thought of
I should hope so.
sisterhood?
I should hope so. Because you see, I think when I was young, I had sort of demonized the 30s. But when I became a 30-year-old, it simply didn't bother me. It was just another day in my life. But ageism, of course, very much exists in dating apps to matrimonial apps. It's everywhere. And it is one of the deciding factor in case of women. Because let's not forget that apart from being a companion, a woman is valued mostly in terms of her fertility. So the marriageable age, as we call it, ends at 35, more or less. I mean, the preference stops at 35. Beyond that, what lies remains to be explored. But I believe that dating apps or marriage apps mostly target 20 to 35 age group. And beyond that, it is a danger zone.
Why would you call that?
Not for me. I mean, this age group is mostly preferred by men.
Right. I mean, the profiles show more.
For women, on the other hand, the age group goes up to 60.
Okay.
A man is always marriageable, but a woman is not. This is what I've learned from dating apps and matrimonial sites.
And the expectation never ends. Once, you were telling me about how everybody's going to have a prying eye as to why you're not getting married. Once you're married, there will be why you're not why you're without a baby. So, it never ends actually for women. And then
it is a vicious cycle.
If you're married and there's a baby in place, now you're well read. So why aren't you going back to work again? So
now, there is always the irritating, if I may call it, question that Why don't you bring another sibling into the world? A playmate for your baby. Two is better than one.
Yeah.
The demands never end.
Yeah.
And it never ends well for women.
So, Ishani, how do you deal with reminders that some women like you are on different life paths than other women when people inquire about your single status during events, including, say, social gatherings and weddings? Even members of the distant family may feel free to make some remark about your singlehood and make rude jokes or comments. How do you handle it? And is there anything you wish to say against such statements?
Well, I mostly avoid going to weddings because of that. That is my escape mechanism. And sometimes I'm rude right back at them. That always works. I don't know, like these are very tricky situations, and luckily there is always a plate of food nearby, so you can pretend to be eating and ignore them blissfully. So that works each time. But yeah, there have been rude comments, sexist comments about my single status. These are something which come every day, but you learn to live with them, never accept them, but you learn to live with them.
Ishani, I think, however, the perception of singlehood among women is changing, and women are consciously choosing to remain unmarried. Do you think the strength comes from an understanding of the actual reality of marriage in a patriarchal society, a realization of their self worth and financial independence?
Um, yeah, I believe that financial independence is something very basic for each human being and is non-negotiable, really. Everybody needs to be financially independent for their own good, not just as a backup plan to fall back upon, but it is necessary to have an identity for oneself. I believe that is very necessary as much as education, as much as food, as much as other fundamental rights. The necessity of being self reliant and self independent is paramount. Yeah, the perception of singlehood, it's changing all right, but those who had already been liberated or privileged had already taken that step, like my maternal aunt, like her colleagues back in the day, as also Asha Parekh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I believe one of the contemporaries would be Katrina Kaif. So it's not that more and more women are choosing to remain unmarried. I think the real issue is that women are choosing themselves as priority. They're prioritizing themselves, their careers, their happiness, their dreams, their professional life, their goals, and they are being so fulfilled in them that they do not really need to go under the radar of marriage. Marriage as an institution will always be patriarchal, will always uphold patriarchal values. How do we negotiate with them? And because we are always told to be submissive, to mind our words, to be resilient, to be obedient, to not utter a single word against our elders, against our husband, to be a good wife.
True.
So these are a sort of guidelines for marriage, so to speak.
Well, the very idea of leaving your house and going and staying in the other person's house, that itself creates a power structure, doesn't it?
Of course, it does. A lot of added responsibilities, a lot of duties, a lot of facades to be maintained, a lot of relatives to be catered to. And this happens overnight. You are supposed to excel at it in the glimpse of an eye. That is never easy.
Mm-hmm.
That is difficult to digest for anyone, for that matter.
Well, a woman can wish for something else other than a good marriage. Why is this still a hard idea for the society to digest? On the bright side, from fitness to friends to faith, being single frees up time to pursue a wide variety of life enhancing activities and practices. True, their coupled up counterparts enjoy their own advantages and challenges, but they are merely different, not better. Ishani, with this, we have come to the end of the episode. If there's something more that you want to add, please do so.
I
Yeah,
believe that.
yeah, you were saying something about Priyanka Chopra. I remember.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The thing is that I was talking about signifiers of marriage, like Priyanka Chopra suddenly endorsing this Vulgari Mangal Sutra and the hue and cry over it, and Tanish coming out with its counterpart and bringing in intersectional feminism into it, showing lesbian couples and trans couples
Mhm.
wearing Mangal Sutra. And let's not forget that today is Karwa Chauth, and
Yeah.
a lot of women are fasting willingly or being conditioned, let's not go into that, for their husband's good health and longevity, whatever that might mean. In West Bengal, I believe most women perform Shivratri Vrat for their husbands, for finding a good husband. So you see, the onus of longevity and all that always comes upon the woman. I mean, do you recall seeing any woman centric festival where the man of the house has to fast for their counterpart? I don't think so. I mean, who prays for our longevity? Who prays for our success? From Karwa Chauth to Jamai Shoshti, from Bhai Phota to Rakhi, all of these festivals have put women in a submissive state where the husband or the brother, you know, acts as their protector, as their benefactor, as them being dependent on them.
Hopefully, the trends are changing now that people are tying Rakis to the sisters as well. I think the society probably in the next few decades, though very slow at a turtle speed, but um, we have to be hopeful that there could be some positive change coming in our way.
I, for one, had been a rebel. At a very young age, I had protested against Bhai Dooj vehemently, saying, why is nobody giving me a tika praying for my longevity? And I initiated the beginning of bone fota in our family. I gave tika to my sister, my cousin sister, and it was a thing for some years.
Shani, thank you for inspiring us a great deal. So, with this, we come to the end of the episode. Thanks for inspiring so many women in so many ways. I'm sure they'll be so motivated by seeing you today. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.